Hello, my sons. Merry Christmas to all of you. I hope you're filled with holiday cheer, joy, spending time with loved ones, and of course, remembering who died for our sins. He's a stand-in for the other guy. But before that guy comes back, I managed to get myself a handful of Atari flashbacks. These gaming compilations are perfect gifts for the friends I don't have, especially with all the games stacked inside. It's perfect for any gamer. Just, I wish there was an easier way of doing this because, well, all of these boxes, they're taking up a lot of space. You know, on second thought, these might have been better.
So today we're going to go over the compilations themselves and review them. The games will be mentioned here, but it's mainly going to be talked about in terms of historical stuff, artwork, or things that would actually make these compilations interesting and worth your time. Not so much the individual games, though they will be mentioned here and there. There will be a few anniversary titles just because I don't think I would ever talk about these again for the most part, so keep that in mind as I'm doing these reviews. There's going to be an anniversary title type of thing, but these are just kind of ones you throw on the shelf and just pretend that they didn't exist because they're either bad or no one really talks about them. For the most part, it's straightforward. There's only really 2 or 3 anniversary titles, so keep that in mind. I kind of just threw the few anniversary titles in here as a bonus. But hey, these are going to get shoved in the closet of completed games at the end of this episode anyway, so that's a plus. Gaming compilations are nothing new, easy cash grabs for a lot of companies, especially around the holiday season, especially if they're not doing anything with their IP or they're just working on bigger projects. My first introduction to compilations were the Sonic Mega and Gems collection. I got both of these around the same time during the holidays, and these are pretty good compilations overall. As an exclusive Nintendo kid at the time, seeing the Blue Blur rush to not only Game Boy, but GameCube was quite the surprise as a young child. Always hearing murmurs of what Sega had cooking up, and then all of a sudden, well, now he's on the GameCube. Sega at this point was now a defunct hardware company, now only doing software, so it made sense that they would port it to their competitors to make a little extra scratch. Yeah, hardcore Sega fans at this time had to cope with Sonic being on a Nintendo console. Thankfully, I was a cool virgin at the time, and Sonic only piqued my virginity status at the time. Like mine and many others, this was our first time playing Sonic CD because, well, no one owned a Sega CD because then you had to own the Genesis, and then you had to own the add-on, and then you had to own the game, and it was just a whole mess. Yeah, I don't know what Sega was thinking. This was a terrible marketing gimmick.
For comparison, that's over $1,500 in today's economy. Man, boomers really sucked the wealth out of America on that one. What happened here?
But anyway, this was my first time playing Sonic CD, and it just felt like a Sonic game that I hadn't had a chance to play. I was really impartial to it. Like, it felt fine to me, but if I had to be honest, I think it is the least exciting game in the Genesis era. But because of the scarcity of the Sega CD at the time, this was actually seen as a very rare opportunity for most Sonic fans to actually play Sonic CD. Back then, obviously, the Sega CD wasn't a console that everyone had, so again, this is not the worst thing that could happen. I mean, it even says it on the front of the box. And I'd like to preface this by saying it's not really Sonic CD's fault. It was on hardware that, well, was overpriced and also just had terrible marketing. So again, it's really good to have it here. I just don't really like Sonic CD altogether that much, in my opinion. If I'm being honest, I played a lot of Vector Man when it came to this compilation. Yeah, on the Gems collection, you could say this is an underrated gem. Thank you. Anyway, yeah. Other than that, this game actually has a lot more to it than just Sonic CD, though. Also, this is the original version of Sonic CD ported to GameCube. This is not the Christian Whitehead version, which became the staple later on in its life. Unfortunately, finding an original CD or Gems collection is kind of one of the only few ways to play the original Sonic CD, so keep that in mind. If you're looking for the authentic Sonic CD experience, well, then get a Gems collection or just piss a lot of money on a Sega CD. But there were hidden unlockables that made this game stand out, of course. Vector Man 1 and 2 were the only unlockables in the game because the other unlockables Sega kind of just gave to you. Also, they had Game Gear games, which was actually very nice because...
Who had a Game Gear over a Game Boy anyway?
Alright, now that one kid in the back of the class decided to raise his hand, let's move on. The 2 big games in this compilation, to me, are Sonic Fighters and Sonic R, the latter of which is still using that R emblem to this day in modern Sonic racing games. This is a fun little romp, but I will say this is also the same reason that Sega has not put another Sonic game where all the characters are on foot again. Limited tracks, limited controls, and they're very janky as well, being on the Sega Saturn, a console that no one really had in the first place. Also, the music used to be criticized, but nowadays everyone sees it as a complete bop, so win for the music, I guess. Speaking of wins, though, Sonic Fighters was an arcade classic that no one really expected to ever come to a home console. And yeah, the fact that it's in Gems collection here is a real shock. It's an arcade-style fighting game where, yeah, you play as the Sonic characters, and they all feel like their actual game counterparts in a sense. It's an arena fighter with health gauges, and I love how once you get really good solid hits and stuff, rings get knocked out of the characters. Like, that's actually insane. Also home to some obscure characters like Fang the Sniper, or Bark the Polar Bear, or Beam the Bomber.
I say Bomber because he never uses dynamite, like ever. He never uses like the standard dynamite. So forever who calls him Beam the Dynamite, when has he ever pulled out dynamite? Is it in the comics? I've never read the comics, but just someone let me know. I've never seen him use dynamite.
It also looks very polygonated, obviously, because polygons were just starting to come onto the scene here, especially in arcade cabinets, where, yeah, you were still pumping quarters into these things, so, you know, keep that in mind. When it comes to the Gems collection, it's actually nice to see the certain games that were ported over because, well, either hardware limitations, low sales, or something else that just really made the games not really accessible to other people. I think it's a really, really good grab if you can find it for a good price, although they were eventually ported to other consoles like Xbox Live or something along those lines, so it's not that they weren't eventually ported elsewhere, it's that this was the big one that it was first ported to. But these great ports aside, what about the overall design of the Gems collection? It's honestly a very futuristic, sleek design that actually entices the player a little bit. I will say, I don't know what it is about UI design that I find so interesting, but when it comes to compilations and stuff, I feel like the UI has to be interesting because obviously the games are what pull people in, but in order for them to stay, I feel like the UI, since it's the first thing that they have to see, well, you know, they have to make it interesting. Each of the transitions between certain things, whether you're going to the museum to find pictures and see what kind of artwork lays there, because, wow, there is a lot of interesting artwork here. There's also manuals, of course, for the games and, you know, little hints and stuff, and I think this is actually a very unique thing just because we don't get hints in games anymore. We don't really get those kinds of, oh, use this code, or, oh, it might be in this level. Normally now we just kind of have YouTube, which, I don't know, it's a bit of a downer because it's an era of video games that just is not in our purview anymore just because, well, times have changed. Things have gotten a lot more advanced since this era.
You know, back in my day, we had lives and game overs, and in my father's time, we had quarters, and they would go into these mythical machines called arcade cabinets, and, you know, those are long since dead.
But I will say that this has a laundry list of unique goodies that are very enticing to players and historians who kind of just want to see, where did all this stuff go? What happened? What's the artwork? I don't think you'll need manual help, obviously, because, well, manuals in video games aren't really used anymore, sadly, but I will say it's nice to go back and actually look at a time where manuals used to be the standard because we didn't have the internet. There is a ton more to unlock and see in Sonic Gems Collection, which is really a shame that I don't think this will ever get ported, and it's just one of those obscure compilation titles. Now, thankfully, if you wanted to play the classic games, there was a compilation that came out a good chunk a while back before the Gems Collection, and that was Sonic Mega Collection. This had 7 great hit titles, of course, but the main attraction here was Sonic 1, 2, 3, and of course Knuckles being the unlockable for it. Even though I got Gems Collection and Mega Collection at the same time, it's weird to think that, yeah, Mega Collection was just one of those titles that was released 3 years prior. And the reason I say weird is because, well, have you seen the D-pad on the GameCube? It's not exactly the best. Sonic Mega Collection has a unique loading screen, which is just specks of white, which I guess is just because Sega was sent to the stars in terms of being defaulted on their backbones, because my gosh, the fact that all of these are here is still weird to me to this day, because I remember getting this as a kid. Now, of course, it's the norm to see Sonic on so many different consoles and platforms, but back then, this was just wild to see. This menu has a unique gear-like design where, yeah, you have multiple options, and of course these little gears is what I'm assuming they are. Of course, they look very weird and obscured, but I don't know, I think it's unique enough to where people can look at this and go, huh, that's neat. The background screams artistic when it comes to certain things, especially, but it's funny to think that these little tabs hold some of the greatest games in Sonic's history. But speaking of the tabs, let's get into them. First off, we have games.
Wow! You don't say!
There are unlockable games, the Blue Sphere mode from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which, if you like Vertigo, I'm sure you'll love the dizziness that this causes you, because my gosh, at least with me, I have a hard time playing the Sphere stages because my gosh, maybe it's just my ocular issues, but my goodness. But at least it's unlockable and an option there if you'd like. Now, Flicky is a Sega Genesis classic, which has the same name of the bird from the Sonic series, so does that mean this is a Sonic game or just a Sonic game that they wanted to put in, or is this just a Sega game they wanted to put in? Does anyone actually know this? I'm not a Sega rep. Like, do I look like one?
Don't question it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna assume it's the same flickies from Sonic the Hedgehog, but other than that, next we have Rystar, Sega's take on Cool Spot, except this isn't an advertisement for Soda Pop, so yeah, this is actually a decent game that could be had here, if you like platformers, of course. Outside of Vector Man, this is actually a unique gem for anyone who has this compilation.
So let's take a detour to Mega Collection Plus real quick, as the Ooze was a Japanese exclusive, along with the other game that we'll mention, but other than that, the games are mainly the same between the Japanese and the US version outside of those two, and especially the rest of those versions. It's just, there's a lot of similarities between Mega Collection Plus, and even Gems Collection using a lot of the same artwork, so it was a bit confusing of where I should just put these games, and I kind of just bunched them all together. Hope you don't mind, but, you know, for the sake of consistency, of course, I think it was just fine to mention those two games.
Even though Rystar is a good game, same cannot be said for Ooze, which this is just one of those classic games where you don't know what is going on, and you don't really have any clear direction as to what to do, and even if you read the manual, you might be confused, so I don't know, this one you might just want to shelve or play out of curiosity. It's also one of those retro games that doesn't exactly have much of a fan base or an online guide, so good luck with that.
Old enough to know what lives are, but I still suck at 16-bit games. Someone is gonna be pissed.
And lastly, we have Comic Zone, a very at-the-time arcade-style beat-em-up. And yep, nope, that's pretty much it. Speaking of comics, this game actually has comics.
Nah, I'm just kidding. It's only one comic. The rest is just illustration art. You can't give people too much for what they're paying for, especially in this economy or that economy, as this game is, oh god, I think it's like 20 years old now.
It's got some unique collection pieces here that differentiate itself from Gems Collection. I mean, some of them have a few here and there that are the same, obviously. If you copy and paste the manuals, yeah, they're going to be the same. But when it comes to unique stuff here, I think there's some artwork and stuff that just actually stands out. It also has illustrations and movies, of course. Most of these can actually be found elsewhere online. I also love these little CGI cards, and I'm assuming that most people actually haven't seen most of these extras. You know, just because no one actually owns a GameCube these days, or even has the Mega Collection, or really most of these collections, actually. For historical purposes, I'm actually glad that a lot of things are here for this game, just because, well, you know, I mean, it's not often that developers actually get to archive a lot of their stuff, at least in a public format. Most of these kind of just fall under NDA stuff, or if Sega allows them to show the public this, just because some of this stuff can definitely cause a stir, especially this one.
Competition markets used to be so much fun.
I also love how we have sections for Team Sonic and Team Eggman, but then we have other characters. Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure if you called any of these guys other characters to a Sonic fan, they'd throw a chili dog at you. But surprise, surprise, that's definitely not the only Sonic collection we have here. We have the Sonic Mega Collection Plus.
So outside of a few Genesis and Game Gear games, the only thing of notoriety is just some pre-production stuff for Sonic Heroes with Team Sonic and Team Shadow and the intro, and that's really it. It's not bad. It's pretty good. It's just that was the Sonic game that was big at the time, so of course they had that on hand. It felt like there could have been just a little more.
So yeah, this Plus is supposed to add a few bells and whistles here and change some of the things because, well, this was put on Xbox. There's not that many differences, but there's notable enough to where I actually was able to buy this dirt cheap and, you know, just talk to you guys about it. Also, the 360 has a way better D-pad anyway. Sonic Mega Collection is from my childhood, but Mega Collection Plus was something I decided to get for this channel just to see if there are any differences, and to my surprise, there's a little bit, because obviously they had to add a few things to add that little plus at the end. So far, Gems Collection has the cleanest UI, but if I had to go between the two Mega Collections, I think Mega Collections Vanilla has the better UI. Not to say that it doesn't have a unique UI, it just isn't what I would particularly call interesting to me.
So, to some, if not most, Mega Collection Plus would have been the better holiday gift. And factually speaking, yeah, they're kind of true. It is better, but, you know, call it nostalgic bias on this one. I personally prefer the original.
The background televisions and artwork are a unique art choice, after all. I like the slanted, unique, edgy vibe of the early 2000s here as well. Also, the Sega Genesis is kind of plastered everywhere here. In terms of uniqueness, Gems Collection actually wins out of this, I'll say, trilogy of the era, just because, well, I guess, yeah, no, it has the unique games, it ported Sonic CD over, an arcade fighter, and, of course, something from the Sega Saturn. Everything else kind of just ported stuff from the Genesis era.
I smell a pattern for the next 20 years. So, if I had to choose between Gems Collection and the Mega Collections, honestly, Gems Collection takes the cake on this, not only for the special historical stuff, but the variety of games inside is definitely above the rest, especially the Genesis games here. Not saying that there aren't games worth it in either or, but Gems Collection takes the cake. Now, if I had to choose between the next one, I think it would be Vega Collections Vanilla, just because I'd already have a GameCube at that point. Although the only thing that would really discern me, not even historical things, is just the controls, as, you know, a D-pad from the Xbox or, you know, the PlayStation is a lot better than it was on the GameCube, but that's not really that big of an issue to me, as the GameCube had 8 directional input. So, I don't know. If you guys had to choose, let me know what you would think down below, but I think the fact that I got to talk about all 3 of these is a Christmas miracle in and of itself, and I'm very grateful that I actually get to talk to you guys about this, because, I don't know, these are just unique. And yes, I've said that word a lot in this, but I don't know, just to have all of these games and explore them a bit. I think that's something that not a lot of people get, and I think we should be a little appreciative, especially around the holidays, talking about video games, because not a lot of people get that. So, thank you all so much for watching as well. Let's continue. Alright, what do you mean your middle name is Maurice?
I think what's really worth it here, though, is the game history, especially since when I was a kid, I would snuggle up with a fire, you know, definitely very cozy for the season, and look at game development, look at the images and stuff. Even though I didn't fully grasp it, I was so mesmerized, and of course I watched some prolific YouTubers throughout my day, of course, that went over game development, and basically just went over a bunch of unique things. And yeah, no, I really respected these guys. It's so much so that I actually wanted to get a career in game design. And unfortunately, well, it led me down the rabbit hole of, yeah, I definitely can't, especially with the AI today and just what my education brought me.
Thousands of taxpayer dollars, of course, at New Jersey's expense, all for nothing, and yet I'm still more qualified than pretty much everyone at IGN. So, you know what, if anything is to be had that is grateful, it's that I can say I'm more qualified to talk about video games than most of the people at IGN, legally speaking, so... Woo! Gotta keep up that holiday tradition of being grateful for things that other people might not have, such as an ill-advised education. Some people don't get educated, and you know what, honestly, I think at this point I would have preferred it.
My holiday pastimes aside, I will say that these have a wonderful set of games, menus, and extra goodies for the players to really nitpick what they want to see, and you know what, it's all up to choice. These are going for relatively cheap prices for the most part, because most of these compilations, well, they were ported elsewhere. And the unlocks are piss easy too, so, you know, it gave you more opportunity to unlock the things that, you know, you probably wanted to get to, like Vector Man.
We'll talk about Sonic Origins in just a bit, but I actually want to talk about something that kind of upsets me a little more, as the release of that game, well, it saw the removal of the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis classics on Steam, which it was a bit upsetting, I'm gonna be honest. Roll the clip.
Yeah, this was a very unique collection put on Steam. These games were $5 a pop, and yeah, they were delisted because, well, Sonic Origins was coming out, and Sega thought it was a really good idea to remove this off of Steam, even though it had a completely unique atmosphere, gave the player choices to do things in this room, and gave you the atmosphere of a 90s kid, something that, well, we definitely don't have in today's society with our flat-screen TVs and basically every modern piece of technology down to the iPad. I think you could even load in your other legally obtained copies of Genesis games into this, just so that you could play things in VR. Now, I don't have a desktop that can play VR yet.
Yeah, if only I could make my Nintendo GameCube into a high-end PC that could run VR, but, well, that's not happening anytime soon. Yeah, that's never gonna happen.
And also, I need a VR headset, but it's one of those things where now I'm glad that I got it before Sega decided to rip this from us, just because, well, the shop, you know, took it away, and Sonic Origins was just the next game to really rip this from us. And, you know, if I had to choose between this 90s room or what's about to happen next, honestly, I'd really like this 90s room, just because when I play games not only just for story, but for atmosphere. How do I feel when I play these games? And to be honest, well, I think this actually provided a unique way of playing games outside of just pop this into a console. But hey, getting a VR headset is going to be on my list of goals for this channel, I guess, seeing that now I actually want to play this for VR.
That was your hint to subscribe, but I'm also gonna put that on my list of goals for the channel of cool things to do. And, yeah, no, it's nice to manifest that, or at the very least, put that on a list for Santa.
But thankfully, we have Sonic Origins. Now, these are the basis of the Christian Whitehead games, which were eventually ported to iOS, and of course, going forward, were the staples for Sonic Genesis collections. And yeah, no, I mean, I think that these are really good compilations. They also add a story mode as well, which puts them all together and ties up a lot of loose ends, like how did Sonic and Tails meet? Like, we really needed to know that, I guess. But these animations are really, really wholesome, and one thing that did surprise me is that they didn't actually reanimate the Toei versions of Sonic CD's opening, and that actually surprised me as well because, well, I guess they're timeless, but also in the same sense where they're conflicting art styles between the two, and I don't know, I just think it's funny that they were like, nah, we don't want to reanimate this. One, it's too good, and two, we probably wouldn't be able to do any better, especially with the new art style. I always wanted to reanimate this in my own art style, or close enough to the Sonic Origins art style after college, but then again, you know, I don't really see myself as much of an animator anymore, but I really hope someone does it one day. Now, I will say up until the release of Sonic Origins, digitally that being because Sonic Origins Plus was a physical release, we'll get into it in a sec, but that this really, just put the chart on screen.
So, my degree is in 3D animation and game design, not business, but I'm gonna take a stab and say that this was a terrible marketing idea. Just call it a hunch.
So Sonic Origins Plus is the complete package here, taking the digital front out of the equation, and it gives you an extra bag of goodies, and by bag I mean just a small little art booklet, and the DLC that definitely wasn't planned in that long little chart or anything like that.
Oh, poor Amy.
Yeah, Amy Rose was actually supposed to be a playable character, but because Sega decided to have a little bit of disputes in terms of what they wanted in terms of development time and stuff, and not giving the developers any room to breathe, well, that came out later. So I double-dipped my chips and got the Sonic Origins Plus, and yeah, well, it's all cohesive here, and of course Sega really loves taking their fans for all they're worth because they did the same thing with Sonic Mania, releasing it digitally and then physically. But Sonic Origins Plus has a plethora of things besides just the story mode. It has missions and stuff like that, which basically looks like a Sonic Mario Maker of sorts, which,
Sega, buddy, pal of mine. I've known you for 20 years. Boy, do I have a proposition and an idea for you. It's a crazy one, but hear me out.
There's also little cards and stuff as well that you can fill out and get unique artwork, especially for either Sonic's birthday or something else like that. Yeah, no, this was actually really nice, and I will say, you know, in terms of the Plus portion of this, yeah, there was some stuff hiding behind the paywall, but if you got the disc with the Plus version, then, you know, you'd have access to a bunch of goodies in terms of music, artwork, so on and so forth, and there are manuals still here, of course. I mean, most of these compilations, if not all of them, still have the manual, so that's not really that big of a thing, but the Game Gear games here, man, do they suck! They are just terribly emulated. I don't know why or how. Like, who looked at this? I don't get it, personally. I do like the little islands, though, in this little hub world of sorts. You can kind of pick out the little characters and such, and, you know, pick out what's from each game. And, of course, you know, it was unique. Definitely not as good as some of the other things we've seen here, but it's a step in the right direction. Obviously, these 3D models are high quality compared to other things, of course. I mean, there's certainly things here that are worth it, but I don't know. I mean, that's really up to everyone else to decide. I think Origins does a fine job and gives you a collection of Sonic games that, yeah, no, they're definitely here, and they definitely run well, and they're on modern hardware. But I don't know. I just feel like because it decided to take something from us that was unique, it did put a little sour taste in my mouth. And, you know, then on top of that, we also didn't have that in Sonic X Shadow Generations, which was the Genesis controller, of course, which gave you the original Sonic 1. And I don't know. I think it's one of those things where it's like a little money hungry, but it's not egregious like other companies.
So outside of a boss rush, that's pretty much it for Sonic Origins. But for my next trick, what I am going to do is pull out, hopefully, a more interesting game inside my sack. Okay.
Yeah, Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection, sprouting the American design. They really pulled out all the stops to really tickle your fancy for that nostalgia. And I can see why this game is jam-packed with it. So in terms of pizzazz, the UI doesn't really have any of it. It's lacking, and it's just kind of a bunch of Genesis games and such, which, again, is fine, but I think it has a lot more heart here. Besides the copious amounts of games, there's actually a fun little thing. It actually tells you how difficult the game is before you get into it. You can actually see it, and yeah, I think the Genesis design that's pretty much everywhere is alright, I guess, but, I don't think I see many gaming compilations actually put, like, a difficulty meter on their retro games, seeing as most retro games are difficult, especially for modern players.
Yeah, props to this game for having the most special feature out of all of the compilations that I've looked at so far, and thus far. This is actually a first. I've never had a meter where you can actually set the individual, difficulties. That's special, that's new, that's something that I have never seen before. So props to this game. Wow, that's new. It's new to me. This is the first I've ever come across this.
What it lacks in design, it actually makes up for in games. Yeah, there's actually a lot of games here, even some of the ones that I mentioned previously or were in the previous titles. Comix Zone is a very good example of this. Each game also has its own cover art, along with a manual and a description, which is very nice. I will say it is a bonus, that's for sure. But where it really shines is in the developer interviews, and you actually have to unlock these. Yeah, you actually have to play the games in order to unlock the rewards, so honestly, this is a gem in and of itself because it actually rewards the player for doing things, unlike the previous ones. Also, this actually has the original Sonic 3 in it before Michael Jackson's estate decided to take the rights to the song away from Sega, or at the very least, charge them an exuberant amount of money to use these original compositions because, well, who owns this estate? It doesn't matter. Anyway, it's just kind of insane to think about it because, take a listen. Yeah, the fact that they changed the song for, Ice Cap Zone is just kind of insane to me because it's not good now. Also, a bit of a fair warning for anyone who wants to purchase this, you actually do need an original Xbox 360 to play this because this is not backwards compatible on the Xbox One and not backwards compatible on the Xbox Series X.
Oh, the things I do for Fuse. Please don't ask me about my electric bill.
I will say it's a very fine collection of games, very inexpensive. You could get this for like 10, 20 bucks on a good day. And yeah, even though you need an original Xbox 360 for this, it's still worth your while. The only gripe I truly have with this is the aspect ratios, where if you want to change it from 4:3 to 16:9, it's gonna stretch everything out in a very awkward, convoluted way that, yeah, it doesn't look great, but hey, widescreen support, that's something.
And I still can't believe that IGN gave this a 9 out of 10. That's so unlike them to give an above-average score. I would have given this an 8, but a 9. Wow, that's saying a lot because they have a history of loving Sonic.
Trying to find this thing that was never really actually there.
Sonic was never good.
Yeah,
it was a 25-year lie.
Alright, I know it's not very holiday cheery of me to poke fun that much at IGN, but for the sake of this, we're just gonna move on and see what else is in my sack. And, Sega All-Star Tennis Racing? Oh! Xbox Live Arcade? It's a double pack?
So yeah, Pac-Man World Championship came in this little, double pack, I'll call it, because it came with Sega All-Stars Tennis, which, yeah, we're actually just gonna talk about the pack that came with it. It's Xbox Live Arcade Classics, which has Pac-Man Championship, and a few other ones. But I think I got this for like 99 cents at GameStop because I really don't know how else I would have gotten this, just because it's such an obscure thing that I don't know how I would have gotten this. I'm going to be honest. I don't know when or how or why I got this, but I know it was relatively cheap to a point where I was like, you know what, I'd get it. And boy, did it become something that I truly would appreciate later down the line. It came with Uno. That was on every single Xbox 360 at one point, so hey, that's a plus right there. You also get a few extra games and goodies, which is pretty darn neat. Like a good example of this would be the Xbox 360 introduction, which I don't know why. If I already bought that console, I feel like the introduction's a little moot. And I guess this was a combo pack of sorts. I actually don't know the history on this as of making this recording, but let me know down below. What is the history with this? The coolest bit to owning this gaming piece of history, though, is the fact that it actually works with my modern Xbox Series X. Yeah, I actually was very surprised when I put this in, just to check for that backwards compatibility, and it did actually give me a plethora of games with it.
So, exclusive to the Xbox 360 portion of this game is just the Xbox demo video and a few movie demo tie-ins that came with this. I wouldn't say it's really worth that much of a look, but the fact that it's backwards compatible on future Xbox consoles kind of makes me think it's a little more worth it than you think. So, I mean, it's a good grab, and, let's get back to, Pac-Man.
Anyway, Pac-Man, right. Pac-Man Championships boasts a different set of challenges in the Pac-Man style, even a new neon art style to complement the age of the Xbox 360. It's a unique spin on the classic formula. Sadly, you won't get it on Xbox 360.
Let me guess, another digital storefront lost to time.
In terms of Pac-Man arcade styles, this is something I enjoyed playing and going back to. It's lighthearted and fun. I have to remember, though, how old Namco is.
Don't worry, Atari's worse.
Namco's 50th anniversary and Pac-Man's 25th. They decided to make this little collection. On the back of the box, it boasts a steep 14 games, which is a good collection to have. Once you load it up, though, there's a budget that really, it didn't really go to anything. I mean, look at just all of these wonderful arcade cabinets. I can't wait to show you the museum.
Wait a darn minute.
Relive your arcade years and rock out to a cool 80s soundtrack that takes you back to the glory days of arcade gaming. This time, leave your quarters at home.
Anything to avoid human interaction.
Yeah, this is where the game's budget went. If you couldn't tell, there's absolutely nothing here in terms of, well, anything. It's just the cabinets that kind of spin around and you can unlock a few. But the songs here come as followed. Come On Eileen by Dexy's Midnight Runners, Working for the Weekend by Loverboy, She Drives Me Crazy by Fine Young Cannibals, Talking in Your Sleep by The Romantics, and Joystick by Daz Band. Wow, talk about demonetization the game, because I can't play any of these tracks for you, and I would definitely get a copyright strike. My god, they used to actually, enjoy the things they made here. But, I mean, alright, fine. You know what, whatever. There's only this vacant room, and there are 2 arcade cabinets that just unlock Galaga 88 and Pac-Mania. But hey, look, it's a nice place, and you get all these games, and Miss Pac-Man's here because...
Seriously? At games.
Somehow, this wasn't the only thing Namco decided to slap on the GameCube in terms of a compilation, but unfortunately I did not get past the screen, and I have no other way to control this, so we're just gonna put this right next to my degree. But hey, that's okay, Namco didn't stop at the GameCube. Now we have Namco Museum Mega Mix on the Wii, which boasts 24 games.
Oh, what a tongue twister. Yay!
So these classic Namco games on the box are, here and accounted for, but the thing that I'm really interested in is these 6 new remix games.
On the back of that box that I just threw out, that actually sounds like those Pac-Man arrangements that I didn't really get a chance to look at for that compilation, so, I guess Namco really isn't a stranger to remaking their games.
Yeah, even though we didn't get to look at it, yeah, Namco decides to remix Pac-Man and basically any of its other classic games whenever the hell they feel like it. And, that's not entirely the case here. I mean, sure, Pac-and-Roll remix. It kind of reminds me of Super Monkey Ball, a game franchise I refuse to touch again, because dang it, there's that Vertigo again.
Oh, well, I've been sitting for a while. I think it's good to stand up and stretch. Now.
In Pac-Man fashion, though, you roll around collecting dots and eating ghosts that aren't really, that hard to beat, and there aren't many levels either, so you'll get some mild amusement out of this, but, don't expect anything crazy. And that goes for the rest of these remixes, and I'm gonna be completely honest, this seems more like a tech demo and a proof of concept than anything that's actually stable. They kinda just stitched a bunch of demos together and decided to call it a game. Starting with Pac-Moto, it's a game where you just bump off these walls and try to win, and, there are power-ups and stuff, of course, and you get them, and you never feel like they were needed in the first place for the most part, especially because in the beginning they're kind of piss-poor easy, and, it wasn't until the first boss where I felt like I needed a power-up. It's pretty generous when you die, though. I mean, the boss still has its damage from the life and such, so I don't know, and I think you get to keep the power-up too, just because, why not, I guess? Either way, his health and everything is just, I don't get it. I don't know why this is so easy, it's just weird to me. I'm moving on. Grobda Remix. This is literally just combat for Atari with Pac-Man shoved onto it. I don't really know what else needs to be said here. It's not really that entertaining, it's alright, I guess. Rally X Remix, and the first few minutes were just kind of really unbearable because I would move, and I thought it was my nunchuck at first, and I would move right or left, and it automatically just decided to crash me into, a wall or whatever, and then I get this warning with this screeching like nails on chalkboard sound.
Okay, so I have more than one nunchuck. I kind of just think it's the game, but I don't know if it's my copy or not. But I do have more than one nunchuck, and they both work with other games. So I'm starting to think it's just the game.
Gator Panic Remix, and this is just Hungry Hungry Hippos with Pac-Man and motion controls. I don't really know what else to say here because, well, it's kind of obvious. Yeah, to say this is forced waggle tech is an understatement. Gallagher Remix, though, oh my gosh, look, I only played the 3 stages of this, and oh my gosh, it's already turning out to be terrible, and kind of just like you're on rails and shooting with the Wii's motion controls, and it is so disorienting. And I think this is just my ocular vision. I'm sure someone decided to 100% complete this, but man, this is just not for me.
Oh, I think I'm just gonna lay here for a second.
Well, I didn't unlock anything that seemed special in this remix, so the only good thing so far has been this hub world that you can kind of play around with. So let's check the arcade, and yep, it's an arcade, and I mean, there's nothing special here. It just shows you controls and whatnot, and I don't know, again, this is just something that does not seem like there was that much effort, and they really wanted to put more effort into the tech demos I just went over, just to see what kind of proof of concept they could make for a game, which, is kind of fine, I guess, but I don't know, it just seemed kind of lame.
So out of all the games, this one was kind of the weakest link. I mean, again, technical issues aside, but you know what, let's see if this one is any better.
Yeah, the sequel to a game that I got in the most laughable combo pack I've ever seen in my life.
I have seriously no idea who thought of this. It's just such a weird combo pack.
You either pick Pac-Man, Galaga, or Dig Dug in the arcade series, with the Championship 2 Edition games being just another option. The Championship Editions add new rules to these versions of certain games, so, for example, Pac-Man, it actually makes you go through this weird mandatory tutorial before you actually get to the adventure mode. But the gameplay-wise, you can bump into ghosts, use bombs for shortcuts, or wake up a ghost. I don't think I care too much about this because I will admit the dynamic on punching ghosts was just soothing enough. I don't know why there needs to be so much here. I also really don't care for the bosses in this style either. I mean, sure, it's nice and satisfying, but I, again, believe Pac-Man at its core is just getting a high score because the game didn't need that much to be good. I don't know, the game didn't strike my fancy. The game isn't bad for people who want an extra thick layer of Pac-Man, but if the adventure mode is anything like the gameplay I played for the tutorial, I think I've gotten enough out of this because I've already gotten enough motion sickness from the Blue Spheres, and of course the Pac-Man without limbs on Wii. So yeah, there's that vertigo again.
My head is killing me, but on the plus side, I'm gonna go lay down for a little bit with my ice pack.
So, what about something with a little more history? Well, this was released, and I think it was, $10? So maybe it's at a good price? I don't know. Let's take a look. Pac-Man Museum.
Oh, excuse me, plus.
For the PlayStation 4, it has pretty much everything the previous games had, except Miss Pac-Man.
Do you guys think that At Games decided to kiss that brick before they threw it at Namco?
So, besides the brutal assassination of the First Lady of video games, let's talk about Pac-Man 256. Yeah, the thing that you can play on a Fire Stick? Well, tough toodles, you don't need that anymore. So it's an endless runner of Pac-Man, which is really cool, seeing as, this is a lot simpler than some of the other remixes we've looked at, and especially when it comes to gameplay. I don't feel any pressure outside for the glitch obviously chasing you. 256 referencing the glitch number for levels when it comes to Pac-Man, and that's actually what's chasing you, so, yeah, honestly, I think this is a great pick if you want a rousing round of Pac-Man, and it's something unique enough to where it's different, but not too different. There's also Pac-Man Battle Royale, which I don't really see much of the point of playing if you aren't facing off against other humans in an arcade, which, this is the best way to play this game, so, Well, this actually takes place inside an arcade. You make yourself, so yeah, you could decorate it with the coins you get and get these little figures at a gachapon machine. Furniture for those arrangements that you just want to sit down and relax in, or you can just, vibe out to the music that you get by playing this game. Also, some games you have to unlock by playing other games, so it's very rewarding for the player to come back over and over again versus most of the other ones we've seen here that kind of just give you everything from the start. There are also missions you can do in these games instead of just blindly playing, giving the player more direction on a task that they would normally not do on their own, or that they would eventually hit, just maybe taking them a lot longer. and then this way they can grab more goodies and obviously make their arcade cooler, because why not? Honestly though, I really like these little minifigures, but it's like this bite-sized Animal Crossing thing that I really normally wouldn't care about, because I'm not really a big fan of Animal Crossing, as, well, my island definitely still has a ton of weeds on it, but I really hope that's more of a compliment to this game. It made a bite-sized version of something in a genre that I don't really like, and yet for some reason, I actually like it here. I don't know, I'm just not really a big Sims guy. Like, if I just wanted to play Life, I would just, well, dishes are done. Trash is taken out.
I believe in many conspiracy theories in life, like Hollywood has always trained us to fight zombies just in case of the zombie apocalypse through movies, games, and other media. And the second thing is that Atari really wants to remind you that they nearly killed the video game industry as a whole. They do this a lot.
Oh, look, they're triplets. Yeah, Atari finally decided to take these big boxes of Atari games and compile them into one big compilation, or should I say 3, because yeah, there's 150 games here. Yeah, I'm so glad I'm not doing a video on all these big boxes, because oh my gosh, that would not only take so long, seeing as they have so many of these godforsaken things. Like, I don't even know how many there are, I just know that there's more than 20, and yeah, that's actually ridiculous to think about.
So, I'm in a giving mood. I'm gonna open up my Bible to a random passage, whatever the number is, that's the amount of likes I'm gonna do for the Atari Flashback games. So, wish me luck. Jeremiah 49:22. Well, it's 4,922. That's the amount of likes. I don't...
But anyway, who are these produced by? Let's see here. They have Atari, Code Mystics, and...
At this point, at Games, just give Namco the rights. Like, what are you doing with Miss Pac-Man, except holding it over their head like a carrot? Just grow up.
You know, at this point, it almost makes me miss cancel culture, because it's the only good thing that this company has. At this point, At Games just needs to give Namco the royalties at this point, because what else is their company doing? Anyway, Atari Flashback Volume 1, you start it up, and you're met with a page of arcade classics, Pong, Centipede, etc. There's also ones that I haven't heard of before, like Atari Liberation Force. There's also 3 pages of games with top-down views of what games, names, and Atari's cartridges there are. These ones actually have manuals as well to them, which is nice to see that you got scans for these, seeing as some of the Atari game boxes are actually more expensive than some of the games they should have been packaged with. It's actually very interesting to think about. But yeah, again, it's nice to see that they actually got scans for these old Atari games, for their manuals and such, even though really Atari games don't have anything of value when it comes to gameplay for the most part. I mean, at least by today's standards, of course. Also, it's not exactly hard to emulate Atari games on a PlayStation 5, emulating a PlayStation 4 game.
Well, At Games did have a hand in it.
I mean, look at the boxes here with a nice little glow effect. Sure. What's really cool is this little console pop-up that tells you the controls and layout for stuff, which Atari didn't really have much other than one stick and a button, so I guess a win is a win for aesthetic.
Thank you so much for coming to me in your time of need again, and I know it's the holidays, but you said it was Atari? Yeah. Was it bad? No. So then, what's the problem? At Games helped produce it. Okay, you might need to see someone else. That's, not gonna be covered by your insurance.
I don't know, maybe Volume 2 has something a little better. So it has Asteroid.
Uh-huh, and?
Honestly, never heard of any of these other Atari games.
Oh.
Like, it has chess, checkers, and pinball, but like, do you want a reward? I have a cooler chessboard at home, just no one to play with. It's the same format repeated. Fine, okay, the manuals are still here, and there's like some kind of online ranking, which, okay, that's interesting. I don't know why they put that in these games, but I don't know, I still feel a little bit dirty buying it. So, let's try and do that a third time. Now I see why this is a little more expensive than its older brothers, because wow, the UI is a lot sharper and cleaner, and yeah, it's a lot more noticeable. Also, there's Atari 5200 games here.
I mean, all the sports and space games is the reason I get up every morning for Atari.
Yeah, see, this is why I really don't care much for Atari games, because, well, they're coded pretty much the same, and outside of that, they switch pixels around to tell a different story between game to game, which, okay, it's fine, I get it, slight adjustments, sure. Combats is basically just asteroids and different scenery and slightly different controls. Oh, excuse me, Combat, you can play with a friend if you want.
When are you going to grow opposable thumbs so you can play games with me? Now, each of those games had 50 games inside. Now, 50 is a very significant number, especially in the case of Atari for our last title, because we have Atari 50. Another compilation for Atari.
Yeah, between the towers collapsing, a housing crisis, and a global pandemic, Atari somehow lasted 50 years. Atari 50, a game to this day, I still question why it has DLC. Yeah, I'm reminded of it every time it loads up, but anyway, so back of the box, let's just see. Well, it says you can play gems from Jaguar, Lynx, 2600 through 7800, but also Atari 800.
So Atari wasn't just in the video game market, they were also in the home computer market. That's why they were originally called computers before consoles. Even though they were making games for them, they also had computer capabilities doing simple, processes and stuff like that. It wasn't exactly at the Microsoft Word level, but these computers were kind of cutting edge at the time, and, well, it kind of invented diet gaming because you were still able to play games on them, but in a more work-related sense. Kind of like how you had, pinball on your computers back in middle school, and no one really batted an eye when you played it and you got all your work done. That's kind of what Atari invented. I would call that diet gaming. Not really hardcore, but not really PC either. Just kind of like fun things to do with the office while you're working. Nothing crazy, but it's good to note that these consoles were the predecessors to the actual famous ones, the 2600, and so on. So keep that in mind. It's a very weird history, but it's a good one. It's interesting. I don't know. Yeah, I'd say interesting.
Most people were excited for Lynx and Jaguar games as they were Atari's last crack at gaming consoles before becoming a software company. This comes with so much history. Honestly, I think it's worth your time more than the actual games. Honestly, I like opening this up and just seeing a timeline of events for the company, even all the way down to its destruction. Honestly, Atari, for all its rich history in the gaming industry, mainly because they almost destroyed it, but, still, they have timelines of events, developer interviews, highs and lows, and what's super cool is you can actually look through the timeline, see a game, and play it from that timeline. Yeah, you don't even need to go to the library for it, but if you want to, you can. You can also organize it however you want in terms of how you want the games to appear. You can do it by console, by year, by last played, or whatever you want. I love that there's just tons of options here. But this timeline is so much cooler. Did you know Atari had a video music analyzer? Yeah, before the days of Adobe Timelines, we had this thing. And sure, they had cracks at arcade cabinets and such, but wow, I am more mad that I don't actually have the DLC now for this. But hey, I think I'm gonna keep it that way for now. Honestly, I'm actually gonna play through some of these games when I'm done making this video because it's a rare chance for me to play Jaguar and Lynx games, seeing as back in the day, well, these were very expensive and are still expensive today.
Honestly, after complaining about Atari so much in this video, I didn't expect them to give me the Christmas miracle of this. And I actually like the interactive museum design of Atari 50. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of it having DLC, but it does have other company stuff like Pac-Man, to where I kind of understand for licensing reasons why they would probably have to put that in there. But I don't know, this surprised me. It was a nice Christmas miracle, and a gift that I actually would put under someone's tree just because, well, it's got a lot of history, and the game actually only is 8 gigabytes, which isn't a lot for the amount of games, history, and knowledge you get. And I think knowledge is one of those things that, yeah, it is a great gift. If you don't want to get someone a book about Atari, and they somehow have a PlayStation 5, this is actually a pretty good title, or Switch, or Xbox, or whatever you run this on. Yeah, honestly, I don't know if the DLC is worth it, but the base game alone, it's pretty good. I'm thoroughly surprised by this. I cannot praise this enough for doing something interesting and special that none of the other compilations I've looked at have. It's an interactive museum. I can't give it enough praise. Well, my sons, that concludes another episode. And here is your health tip. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the pineapples this week for it because for whatever reason, the supermarket didn't have them. But you can actually have some pineapple sliced wedges, boil them down with some cinnamon sticks, and put them into a nice tea. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, pineapples have a protein-breaking chemical called bromelain, and this helps reduce inflammation in the body. Now, it is really helpful for your gut to digest it with, and especially mixing it with a little bit of cinnamon. It will help you out a lot. You could have it in the morning or during the day, but, again, it's just something that most people don't know off the top of their heads. So if you have some cinnamon, Pac-Man, pineapple tea, let me know down in the comments. You can boil it for a few minutes, let it get all nice and yellow, just like that Pac-Man. And yeah, just let me know if you guys do it down below. And you guys have a Merry Christmas. And I hope you all spend a lot of time with your loved ones. And if you're alone this Christmas, I hope that this video made you feel loved, welcome, and, you know, of course, put a smile on your faces. You know, these times of years, we keep forgetting that some people are alone during this holiday. I've been alone during this holiday. So with that in mind, guys, thank you all so much for watching yet again. See ya!